Welcome to the Marvelous Moms Club podcast, where you'll be not only allowed, but encouraged to dream big dreams and imagine the very best future for yourself and your family. Throw away expectations and perfection and embrace the messy beauty of what it means to be a marvelous mom. I'm your host, Kirsten Tyrell, and I can't wait to help you discover what makes you marvelous. Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of the podcast. I'm super excited. I think I say that at the beginning of every episode. Sorry, not sorry, because I really truly do get excited for every interview and every human being that I get to share with you guys in this amazing community. And today is no different because we are going to be talking and having a really great conversation with somebody who I feel like kind of gets my mojo. She's an entrepreneurial mom and she comes from a business, or I guess just kind of a brand called Making Moxie. This is Shauna, and I'm so happy to have you on here to give a little bit of your background and to strengthen the mommies who may be listening in today. So thank you for being here, Shauna.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Me too. So I love to start with your mommy background. What's the stage of motherhood you're in, ages of your kids? Paint a picture for us of what your house looks like.
My house is basically a zoo. I'm in all the stages. I have a 9-year-old son, and then my daughters are 4, 2, and 5 months old.
Awesome. So you're literally, your oldest is about the same as, well, it is the same as my oldest, but you kind of kept going. I'm out of the baby phase. So you really do have a zoo.
Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. 4 is a lot of kids. We enjoy them so much, but I'm definitely now remembering, now that I have a little one, that I don't get to sleep for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I was telling a friend of mine who hasn't had kids yet. I was like, we're out of that phase now, and people still ask from time to time because I'm young enough that I could have more children. And I told them, it's kind of a 2-year commitment. It's, first of all, it's almost a year of pregnancy, not to mention the months of once you decide to try to have a baby, that's a whole mental takeover, right? And then the whole pregnancy phase and the whole newborn phase. And my babies just didn't sleep for 9 months to a year. So it really is a huge undertaking, and it's probably something you totally want to talk about because you're in it. You're in the thick of it, right? You have a 5-month-old.
I am, and it's hard to be mad about it because she's so cute.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is once they get a little older, you can't imagine doing it again because now they're that age, and you wouldn't want to do it again with them necessarily. Maybe you do. Sometimes I wish my babies were babies again and I could hold them, and that they wouldn't want to run away from me. But that is the trade-off: sweet, blissful, beautiful babies for a lot of not sleep. But it's worth it.
Everyone says that, I wish they were young again. I wish they were little again. And I'm sitting here thinking, no, you don't. Do you remember what those days are like? They sleep through the night and they wipe their own butts. And there's something beautiful about age 4 and 6 and 7.
It's true. It's true. So self-sufficient. And so, yeah, it just brings it to a whole new level. But in just a few years, you'll be there. You'll be out of diapers in 3 to 4 years, and life will just be smooth sailing unless you get crazy again and have a 5th. I mean, who knows?
No more craziness. We have all the craziness we need.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about your business, because on top of the zoo of home, which a lot of us can relate to, you've also kind of formed a business. Tell us about how that started and about when that started.
It's a little bit of a weird story about how it started. So I've got 2 degrees. I wanted to be a teacher and then decided not to do that. Went back to school for professional writing, and then I couldn't get a job. So I ended up doing a lot of freelancing, freelance writing, doing blogs, sales pages, all this stuff. And this one company hired me and had me do my HubSpot marketing training. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm a marketer. That's what all this writing that I'm doing is about.
Yeah.
So I ended up in a few different freelance jobs for different companies until this friend of mine, who was actually the one who got me started with the HubSpot training, he asked me to come on to his digital marketing agency that he had started. Cool. Super excited about it. It's that was a dream come true. It was exactly where I wanted to be. And then 6 months after I had left my job and joined him, he fired me.
What?
So yeah, it was really, really intense.
I bet.
things weren't going well. You know, we were
Yeah.
taking on all these new clients and they just weren't getting taken care of. They weren't seeing results because we weren't putting in the work, and was trying to talk to him about it. And it was more about the vanity metrics. It was more about our Instagram was growing and we'd get new team members, and we had new team members that we didn't even need, but yet our customers, our clients weren't getting taken care of. And that killed me. So I voiced my
Yeah.
opinion, I fought for it, and I got fired. And
Mm.
it is the first and only time I've ever been fired in my life. It was terrifying. My husband's in the military. It was 3 weeks before he left for a 6-month deployment.
Oh my goodness.
I had 3 little nuggets at home, and I was just wrecked. I didn't know what I was going to do. And that was kind of at the point where I said to myself, I am good at this. You know, I care about these customers. I care about these clients. I think I can do this myself.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I had been working remotely online for so long. Having 3 little ones at home, it was really daunting to think about going out and getting an office job. I probably wouldn't have been able to pay for the childcare at that point.
Right. Right.
So I had my kids at home, and I decided that I was just going to start out on my own, and that's what I did. That's where Making Moxie came from.
And because you literally made your Moxie, right? I mean,
I
that's
did.
not
It
a
was
term
very
you hear.
empowering.
It's really not. I love that word, but it's not one that you hear as often as, say, marvelous, right? Like, so is that kind of, when did, this is such a nerdy question because business person to business person, this is the kind of stuff we love. And you're a marketer. What came first, the chicken or the egg, the brand name or the actual brand and business itself?
They were kind of, I don't know if you can have chicken and egg at the same time, but it kind of happened all at once, because my initial thought was that I didn't want to do the vanity thing. I didn't want it to be under my name. I wanted to have a business that was like separate from me.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually shifted since then, to be honest with you, because there's a lot of value in just being myself, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
But for Making Moxie, a friend of mine who had worked with me at that company, she's not where I am. So we literally got out a bottle of wine, me in Colorado and her in Missouri, and we got on Skype, and we were so nerdy, we spent the night on Thesaurus.com looking up different words and the different meanings of words and kind of the vibes of different words. And I wanted my business initially to be called Crave, because that makes me think of like desire and ambition and like the success that you crave. And she was like, girl, that sounds like food. No one is going to get it. And you can't do that. So we came across the word Moxie, and it's such a strong word to me, but it also is very feminine. I don't know what time period was. I don't know if it's like the flapper time period or the 50s, but I feel like that's how women were described. If they were sassy, if they didn't just sit down and be quiet, if they voiced their opinions, the women had moxie. And that resonated with me so deeply. And it was a done deal pretty quick when we came across that word.
I love that story for so many reasons, both because number one, I've done the thesaurus thing, like my husband and I many times. So one of the hardest things for him in businesses is the naming of it. And it can hold us up for weeks sometimes because it's really a jumping off point. And sometimes, you reinvent it, but you really ideally want it to start from a really strong place. So I've been there, I've done that. And as nerdy as it is, I think it's fantastic. And it's something that would totally light me up to do over Skype with a friend. And it also shows the lack of limitation, right? Like you didn't have to go hire a consultancy. You didn't have to have a professional, huge background in this to be able to just know exactly the vibe that you were trying to put out into the world and how you wanted to help people. So I love it. And I love the word so much. And I'm so glad you defined it, because I can guarantee there's at least a handful of people who have never heard that used and don't exactly know what it means. So that's really defining too of like who you are and what you're going to be able to share on this podcast and what you share on your social media accounts and everything. So that's so cool. I love it. And I love that you recognized that you had more capacity, even though you might have had less capacity at first to be able to create something of your own. There's something so magical that happens. And I tell people this sometimes when they're just starting out in a business, they're starting to create their idea. It can feel so scary and daunting, but you miss it later. Don't you agree? Like there's something magic that happens in the formation and the struggle of something that you know you're meant to do.
Absolutely. My little one agrees. She's cooing here in the background. Yeah, that there's just something brilliant about the first stages, and having it be scary is almost half the fun. You know, you need to create something new out of nothing, and it's a time of creativity and drive, and it's definitely a time in my business that lit me up for sure.
That's awesome. So now, how long ago has that been? I didn't do the math on that. And maybe you even said it was 2017, right? When you were fired.
It was
And
it was summer
so,
of 2017, so this summer it'll be 2 years.
okay, so that's a really fresh business still. And it looks like
Hmm.
you guys are having some good success. How has the business evolved now? And how are you managing that? Is your husband currently deployed? Is he home now? What does kind of like the life balance look like running a business of that level from home? That was a lot of questions in one. If you need me to repeat
Okay,
any, let me know.
let me see how many I can remember. So my husband is not deployed; he's at home. But the way, I mean, he's in the military, so he doesn't get much control over his schedule. It's not a 9 to 5
Mhm.
kind of job, so things can still be a little tough. He's on nights right now, and we had
Mhm.
just kind of gotten into the groove where he would drop off the girls on his way to work, and then I would pick everyone up at the end of the day, or we would be switching off. We would take turns making dinner, and now he sleeps all day and he works all night, so I'm back to doing the whole mom taxi deal where it takes me an hour to
Oh
drop
man.
everybody off in the morning and an hour to pick everybody up in the afternoon. And if I don't buy McDonald's for dinner, like, that's a good day. So
Yeah.
we're trying to manage those things right now, and it can be tough, but we figure it
Mhm.
out one way or another. and
Yeah.
and I forgot what the other questions were. I was so busy answering that one.
I mean, I don't blame you. So I kind of asked like how the business has morphed. Do you have team members now? What does kind of like the workload look like being basically the founder and the CEO of your own business? How have you found like what's the growth been like and how have you found to balance that level of responsibility as opposed to being just an employee too?
Okay, I think I can handle that one. It's definitely different being a business owner and not an employee. I always tell people I'm an entrepreneur by accident because I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was cool with stability. I was
Mhm.
cool with somebody giving me work. It was cool with somebody giving me a paycheck. Um, and even though I was ambitious, I that didn't necessarily mean having my own business. So
Yeah.
when this happened and I decided to take the leap, there was a lot that I didn't know that I had to learn, and that took a while. I think the biggest lesson that I learned is that when you go into business for yourself, you're everything. So I couldn't just do the
Yeah.
marketing. That was what I loved, but I couldn't just do that. I had to be the sales department. I
Mhm.
had to be the HR department. I had to do my own accounting. I had to figure out taxes. Um, and that's the biggest lesson, I think, when you go out on your own, is that you can't just do your one role anymore. You have to be all the roles.
Mhm.
Because likely in the
Yeah.
beginning, you can't hire help for all those different things. You got to figure it out.
Right. And I can totally resonate with that because Marvelous Moms Club was just me for like, I mean, all this time. And now we're shifting into more of a collaborative space and we do have a team but it took a long time to get there. And sometimes people, and I love that you even referred to this in the company that you used to work for. What did you call it? It was like oh my gosh, why did it just escape me? I want to say designer. What did you say when they were like focused on the Instagram numbers and that kind of stuff?
Oh, they're
Like,
just vanity
uh,
metrics.
yes, vanity metrics. I love because it's the same concept, right? Like sometimes it's a vanity metric to have a team of employees. I know you mentioned that even was the case with them. And and I think that's so appealing sometimes. We're like, I want to start this business and I'm going to have employees and I'm going to change the world and I'm going to be able to pay people salaries. And it has taken us seriously like 3.5 years to get to a point where it makes sense to have a team of people. So that is something that inhibits a lot of people from even going from phase 1 to phase 2 in their business, is having the wherewithal to be able to manage all of those roles in the beginning where you just don't have options to do anything else. So congratulations to making it into year 2.
Thanks. It really is a big deal. So many small businesses fail, or they drop off from lack of resources or not being able to manage your resources properly. And those vanity metrics, from social media stats to the number of team members, they can trip anybody up. And it can be tough to kind of keep your eye on the prize and remember that it's not about how many people like your Instagram account. It's about what activities are actually generating revenue so you can continue to up level.
Exactly. Okay. So, and then going even kind of deeper into your evolution, I know you mentioned, and I find it's so fun to have these conversations because there's just little pieces where I'm like, oh my gosh, we're the same person. I've had that same experience. I know exactly what you're talking about. I've had a lot of these little moments with you thus far. And one of them is that you saying, you wanted to kind of stand behind a brand. You wanted it to be Making Moxie. You felt like that was a vanity metric to have your name. So what has kind of helped you to shift into, because I noticed, like your website is Shauna Armitage. It's not Making Moxie. So what's kind of been the shift for you?
It was Making Moxie. And in the beginning, I really wanted to work with female small business owners. Being a female small business owner myself, I think that's so important that we support each other. And I actually had a client not too long ago. I'm not sure how it came up in conversation, but he was like, what do you mean? Like, female entrepreneurship is not any different than male entrepreneurship. And I was like, whoa. And I was like, you can say that because you're a man, but what happens when you get invited to drinks after work, to network and schmooze and have business opportunities? I've got 4 kids that need homework help and dinner done and to bedtime stories and baths, and traveling is more difficult because we've got to figure out our schedules or get a babysitter, or it just, especially if you're a mom as a business owner, it looks much different. And he was like, whoa, I apologize. And I was like, thanks. So it is different for women than it is for men. Not in all cases, but in a lot of situations, we are the primary caretakers for our kids. And that you have to figure out how that works with your business. So for me, it was really important to support other women who were going through these same kinds of things that I was going through. I don't know if I just didn't do it right, or if I didn't put my efforts in the right place, or maybe I was just focused on those vanity metrics, but I wasn't getting a lot of interest, for people looking to have me help with their marketing and growing their businesses. But what I was getting was a lot of startup companies that were coming to me and hiring me as their fractional CMO or as their marketing director. So these are companies that have already been funded, and they're, in the startup world. So they've got an angel investor, they've got venture capital, and they need to start marketing so that they can grow. And I got to the point, it was one of my team members that said, you do market studies for everybody else. Why don't you do a market study for yourself? Send out some questions to your customers and ask them like what Making Moxie means to them. Ask them what it is that you do for them. And of course, these things that we do so beautifully for everyone else, sometimes we just don't have the foresight to do for ourselves. And that was the best thing. And my customer said, Making Moxie is great. I love what you're doing, but it doesn't really mean anything for me. I hired you because of you and your thought leadership and the work that you do. And that was just kind of the moment where I had to let it go and say that I need to be the face of my brand. And that's really what's going to drive business forward.
Yeah. Yep. It's kind of a hard pill to swallow, isn't it? I had people tell me that for 2 years, and I'm like, I don't want to. It's so much easier to try and kind of like be the force behind something than the name of the thing. And so I get that. It's super uncomfortable, but it really does, when the time is right and when it fits with your brand and that's what your audience wants from you and that's where you're going to get the most business, you have to lean into that. So it's cool too. Like I've said, I love the evolution process and how you started with one skill set and strength and how it's really kind of morphed into something where you're serving these businesses, these startups. It's probably nothing you would have imagined doing when you started out on your own because it wasn't necessarily your mission, but it's going to, I mean, I can't speak from the super long stretch of experience. I haven't been doing this a whole lot longer than when you created Making Moxie. But what I'm seeing is like a full circle thing where you do eventually get to come back to like your full purpose. So,
and sometimes your purpose changes.
It does. It totally does. It evolves and it grows and it creates like different layers. And so I'm sure you're just on a totally different layer of your 400 layer chocolate cake right now. I love it so much. So, okay, I know you kind of wanted to share a little bit with the audience too, because you have your hands really, really full. And I think a lot of women, that scares them. They don't want to kind of have their hand in all the honey pots because what does that even mean? But what is kind of your viewpoint on our capacity to be like super moms, super women?
It's funny that you asked that because I'm sure everybody can hear my child cooing in the background. I've got a 5-month-old sitting on my lap who's eating the strings on my sweatshirt and definitely needs a diaper change right now. And I'm on your podcast, and that's what balance looks like. I think that there's this misconception about having it all and having it look pretty. Like I go off to work in my stilettos every day and I've got this like high powered job. And then my house is clean and like it just doesn't work like that. Oh dear. So yeah, it's not that simple. And I think that the first thing when it comes to balance is understanding that it may not look or feel the way that you want it to. So you have to accept that and give yourself a little grace. It's not going to be perfect, but what's most important at the end of the day is that you're taking care of yourself, that your kids are loved, and that you give yourself the space you need to grow professionally. And that was actually a hard pill to swallow for me because I think for so many years I put what I wanted to do on the back burner, what I wanted to do as a professional on the back burner, because it just didn't make sense. I couldn't afford to put all the kids in daycare, or I didn't have the time to do this or the time to do that. And when I really decided, no, this is important to me, I'm going to focus on my business, it changed everything. It changed the way that my husband and I, did family together. It changed how I was focused on business instead of kind of just making it a hobby. And it's so important for balance that you make it a priority for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's sometimes like the linchpin, right? Where I saw this thing the other day that's like, no wonder being a working mom is so hard. When you're working, people expect you to be like not a mom. When you're a mom, they expect you to not think about work or something along those lines. And I was like, man, it takes a lot of personal discipline to remain invested in the things that it's like the long game, right? Parenting is a long game and running a business is a long game. It's not something where if you're not in the mood for it, it means you're supposed to give up or it means that it doesn't matter. It's really staying committed and being okay with the disaster. It's like the beautiful disaster situation because it's temporary. You'll flow out of it. You'll come into a different season. It gets easier and it gets harder in different ways. So I think it's just that commitment. A lot of people are afraid to make that commitment to their own dreams and to themselves because they think that it means everything will fall apart, but it doesn't. It just means everything's going to flow and look differently.
It looks different. That's the key.
Yeah, it does. It looks completely different. And that's sometimes fantastic because when you are choosing to let it look a little different, then it's like that Dave Ramsey saying, like, live like no one else so you can live like no one else. The same is true of your own dreams. It's not just with budgeting, it's just life. Be willing to be uncomfortable, be willing to have it be messy for a few years so that you guys can have a very different outcome and a very different bond in your family. And you've worked through and you've done these things together and created this amazing life. So that's really kind of the fundamental thing that I want to be a proponent for on this podcast, because I think it's powerful, it's important, and we need to keep hearing examples of women who are not perfectly balancing it, who have babies on their laps while they're doing podcast interviews, but because they know it's important that they get their voice heard. So I appreciate you being on here in spite of, that it's not ideal right now, because it just means you're committed to your dreams.
You know what? You can say that it's not ideal, and maybe in our heads it's not. But when I really step back and I think about it, it is. Because what would I rather be doing than being able to work from home and have my baby on my lap, or raising my kids and having a successful business that I love. No, it may not look ideal, so but really it is. It's exactly what it needs to be.
Yeah. You're totally right. You're totally right. It's all a matter of perception, right? Like, because there's other people who might say that's not ideal. I'd like to have a perfect workspace and have, a babysitter and a nanny, and life just doesn't work that way. Like, because then you're sacrificing other things. You're sacrificing the ability to hold your kids while you're working. So I totally agree. I love that you pointed that out. Okay, final question, and I love this one so much. Everybody gets asked this question on this podcast. What makes you a marvelous mom?
Oh, what makes me a marvelous mom? I think what makes me a marvelous mom is that I've got 4 kids, and I truly appreciate the uniqueness of each one of them. That until you're a mom, I don't think that you can truly recognize the beautiful little intricacies of children's personalities, even from a young age. And I really try to encourage just all the different unique parts of my kids. And I think that is important just for parents in general, not necessarily moms, to appreciate their kids as individuals and who they want to become.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that answer. It's so true. It's like the ultimate leadership position, right?
It is.
Like, oh, I'm totally not equipped for this, but apparently I have everything I need to help you guys to become awesome humans. So that's such good perspective as well. I love that answer. Okay, well, where can everybody find you on social media? I will link to everything obviously in the show notes, but just for quick reference, where is the best place for them to come and connect with you if they want to learn more and be your friend?
You can definitely be my friend on Instagram. I'm at shauna.armitage, and the business website is shaunaarmitage.com.
Awesome. So amazing. Thank you so much again for being on here. I know that it's filled my mommy cup and it's inspired me, and I hope that it's done the same for hundreds or thousands of other women out there. So I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too. Thank you for having me.
Of course. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode. Have a marvelous day. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you want to take action right now, you're feeling inspired and you're feeling enlightened, and you really want to own this role as a marvelous mom, go to the website, marvelousmomsclub.com/me, and create your own personal Marvelous Moms Manifesto. That is a tongue twister. marvelousmomsclub.com/me. You go fill in some great information, and in the end, you'll have a beautiful manifesto to display where only you can see or the whole family can see, where you can really, really own your role as a marvelous mom and step inside those goals and those ambitions and dreams that you have to become an even more marvelous mom to your beautiful family. So again, marvelousmomsclub.com/me. We will see you over there.